Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for today's webinar, Meals That Matter and Tackling Food Poverty. I'm Angela Oakes, Cost of Living Crisis Project Officer here at One Voice Wales, and I'm delighted to be your host this morning. I'm joined by my colleagues Emma and Vanessa, who will be manning the Q&As. And just to remind everyone that this is a Zoom webinar and not a meeting. So cameras and mics are off to allow us to have multiple guest speakers. There will be opportunities for questions, and you are welcome to pop them in the Q&A box via the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can enable your microphone. All these functions can be accessed via the Zoom controls. And if you are experiencing any technical problems, please do pop a message in the chat and we'll try our very best to support you. So in this webinar, we will explore innovative strategies and collaborative approaches that can support councils to effectively help combat food poverty in their communities. So in 2024, the UK faces a growing food poverty crisis, with food bank dependency reaching record levels. The Trussell Trust, the largest food bank network, distributed over 3.1 million emergency food parcels this year alone, a staggering 94% increase in the last 5 years. Alarmingly, 1.1 million of these parcels went to children, highlighting the severe impact on vulnerable communities. In Wales, the situation is equally dire. Nearly 17% of Welsh children live in food insecure homes, with an additional 10% at risk of precarious access to food. Children are disproportionately affected, receiving 65% of food parcels distributed in the region. Meanwhile, elderly populations face tough choices between heating their homes and affording meals, with profound consequences for their health and independence. And low-income families bear the brunt of this crisis. Households in the lowest income quintile must spend as much as 70% of their disposable income on food to meet NHS dietary standards, compared to just 12% of the wealthiest households. And those on universal credit or other benefits are particularly vulnerable, as these fail to keep pace with inflation and soaring food prices. So these numbers represent real lives. Children too hungry to focus at school, families struggling to make ends meet, and elderly and individuals skipping meals. And the long-term consequences on health, education, and community stability are far-reaching. Projections suggest that food assistance demand in Wales could rise another 20% within 2 years if cost of living pressures persist. So to combat this crisis, community and town councils can play a crucial role. Their close connection to residents positions them to provide targeted support, advocate for resources, and partner with charities, schools, and other organisations. By expanding food assistance programmes, promoting healthy eating, and driving broader policy changes, councils can help build Wales where no family goes hungry. So today we're fortunate enough to be joined by several guest speakers from councils who've already made significant strides in this area. So we'll be hearing from Vicky Bolton, the clerk for Coed Community Council, who runs a community food pantry, and they receive donations from their local stores. We're also joined by Martin Hanks, the clerk of Bangor Council, who will be talking about their hot food project, which they run in conjunction with the student union at the university. And I'd also like to welcome Laura Haynes-Burke from FareShare, and she'll be giving us a presentation on the role that they play in helping those struggling with food poverty. So I'll firstly hand over to Laura from FareShare. Borodar, Laura.
Thank you, Angela. So I will share my screen now with our presentation. So my name is Laura Haynes-Burke and I work for FareShare Comrie. I'll explain a little bit about what we do and kind of how we are working towards hopefully ending food insecurity. So Fair Share Cymru, Fair Share is the UK's national network of charitable food redistributors. And you can see on that map there, for every green apple, that is where one of our centres is. We have 25 regional centres throughout the UK, and our aim is to turn an environmental problem into a social solution. And that's something you might hear me say quite a bit. It's absolutely our focus and our aim. So what we do is we take all surplus food from the food industry and then we redistribute it within our local regional areas to all of our community groups. So our vision is that no good food goes to waste, and our mission is that we maximize the social value of surplus food. So what is it that we do and how is it that we do it? We receive surplus food from the food industry. That can be from farmers themselves, direct from farmers, from other distributors, from supermarkets. Anything that is surplus to their need gets sent to us. We then have incredible volunteers. We've got about 80 alone in Cardiff. They bring all the food in, they pack it, they log it, they put it on the vans, and then the vans go out to our communities. Our volunteers deliver it to those frontline community projects. They get that food then gets turned into nutritious meals. It gets put in pantries and community kitchens, and then that goes to thousands of vulnerable people every single week. We also provide training and support for our volunteers, and also indeed for any of our community members that work with us, we're there to support them too. But we're not just about food banks, which is a common misconception. We support a wide range of charities. We're quite strict, and we believe that it has to be more than food. What we want to do is support communities and support the people within those communities with as much food, nutrition, and education as possible. So we do breakfast clubs, we do schools, youth clubs, hospices, care homes, community cafes, soup kitchens. We do advice centres, we have hostels, supported housing, family centres, kind of like the list is endless. If you are a community group that uses your food to support within that community, then we want to hear from you. One of the centres that we support, you may or may not know them, they're called the Huggard Centre. And so they support individuals who are experiencing homelessness in Cardiff, and they've been doing that for over 30 years. So their doors open at 8:30 every single morning, every single day of the year, and they have their visitors. The people there are sleeping rough within Cardiff, and usually they don't have support with any other organisations, although the Huggard kind of intervene and do that. What I'm going to try and do now is show a video. I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear this, but it's about our work with the Huggard.
Is it playing, Laura?
Oh,
It's
it's playing. Did it not play?
no.
Okay. Bear with me a second. Let me see if I can share my screen in a different way. Okay, let's see if this plays now.
It's playing, but there's no audio, Laura. So
Okay, can you see the okay, I wonder if we could do the audio. I'm up as loud as possible. Is there the subtitles coming at the bottom?
yes, there are subtitles.
Okay. Are we okay to do with the subtitles, or should we try and do it a
Yeah,
different way?
that's
Okay,
fine.
fab. Okay. So apologies about the lack of sound, but that is just one of the projects that we work with, the Hugged. So as you can see there, that's how we take the food from our warehouse, all of our amazing, phenomenal volunteers. And you saw Janet there, who just won our Volunteer of the Year. They do kind of all of that work down in our warehouse, and then the food gets sent out and it gets made into meals to support the vulnerable. So what's our impact in 2024 so far? We've helped 179 charities, including the Hugged. We help lots and lots of different schools as well throughout Wales. We have saved 866 tonnes of food from being wasted, and that's the equivalent of 2.1 million meals. And that's 2.6 million tonnes of CO2e that we have saved for the environment. And the CEO of FareShare explained that we don't believe surplus food is the solution to food insecurity or poverty. That's absolutely not the solution. But as long as surplus food exists, we seek to achieve the maximum social benefit from it. We will do our absolute utmost to make sure that the people that are suffering through food insecurity absolutely get that support from the food that FareShare can offer. So how could you support your local communities, or how FareShare can through yourselves? If you know a community support service that could use food to bring people together, we could possibly provide that food. Becoming a member with us is reasonably simple, and it can save those projects a heck of a lot of money. We aim to do 5 to 10 times more. Sort of our membership fees are, you get the food 5 to 10 times more than you would in any other supermarkets. And all of the food that we receive is safe, it's in date, it's just absolutely surplus to needs. So how else you can support for FareShare? You could organise to donate food, or you could organise to donate drink to support the people. You could come and do some volunteering in our warehouse. It's always really fun. It's such a lovely atmosphere down there. You could choose FareShare as a charity of the year, or you could do corporate events, corporate fundraising, or we have our employability team. So we are trying to support as many people as possible to get into the world of work. And if there was something that you could offer a portion of your apprentice levy fund to us, or guarantee interviews or something like that to our employability scheme, that would be phenomenal. And all of these little things absolutely go to help food insecurity, or the end of food insecurity. So we believe no good food should go to waste, and we believe that we can turn an environmental problem into a social solution. If you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know in the chat. I would love to hear from you. And yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Thank you for that lovely presentation. Before we move on, does anyone have any questions for Laura?
All I was going to ask, Laura, was I'm Wrexham based, so we have a food share, food bank in Wrexham. And I just wondered what the process was for volunteering.
To volunteer with us?
Yeah.
So if you can contact myself, my email address is laura@fareshare.com, right? I can kind of send that process information out to you to be able to do that. That's awesome. Yeah, doors are always open to volunteers. There's always something to do.
Well, the thing is we have a community agent, and we support other people to get into to get out of loneliness and isolation. Part of their role is to do that in our area. And obviously we have a lot of people who possibly can't enter the workplace for whatever reason. So, and I also used to be a volunteer officer at a vow in Wrexham, so I've always pushed volunteering for health and wellbeing anyway. So, and on the flip side of it, also I've supported FareShare through, I used to be a Tesco community champion, so I used to support it. But then also through Scouts, we've been supported with the Scouts as well. So it's always of interest to me as to what the process is, you know, how complicated it would be for anybody to get into that support role, into that volunteering role.
From my understanding of it, I'd say it's not that complicated. I myself used to be a volunteer manager, so kind of understand that there are barriers in certain ways. So they would apply either online or via an email. They would then have a chat with our volunteer manager, our volunteer lead, Phil. He would then kind of go through all the necessary information. If they were applying to be a driver, it would be a DBS check would be needed. If they're going to be in the warehouse, no DBS check is needed. We do encourage our volunteers to kind of try everything a little bit in case they do want to swap and change. We're completely open to that. And then it would be induction and starting. The references as well, but the references, it's semi-informal. They're more phone calls than forms and things to go out. We do aim to get our volunteers started as soon as possible because we want to keep that momentum going. And we do tend to find as soon as somebody's kind of come to the warehouse and met a few people and done a shift or two, they're kind of in with us. The frustrating thing about our warehouse, and I can't lie, is that we're not that close to too much public transport. There's sort of one bus every half hour or something. That can be quite off-putting for some people. But we also have kind of a really good group of volunteers, and they figure out car shares, things like that. But yeah, if you want to chat about it any further, Vicky, please feel free to kind of drop me an email and I can link you in with Phil.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with him in the past, but it's not for a long time, and I just think it's just such a good thing towards health and well-being for the volunteers, not just obviously, and then supporting a good cause. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that, Laura. We have a hand raised from Clive Easton. So, Clive, if you want to come in.
Laura, thanks very much for your presentation. And the work you do is absolutely fabulous. And the simple fact that you managed to utilize so much waste food is amazing. It's somewhat alarming that there is so much waste food in some ways, but that's another issue. But I do think that there's a couple of issues I'd like to raise, which are a little bit difficult perhaps, but I think, need to be addressed. The first one is, how do you check that the people who received your meals are deserving of it? Now, just to give you an example, I was aware of a lady not too far from me who was taking food from a food bank. She was seen later that very evening treating people to a meal at a local restaurant. So what she was doing, in effect, is nullifying all your good works. And I'm sure I cannot be the only person who've come across something like that. So how do you check that the people who come to you are deserving of that care and concern? So that's the first point, Laura. And the second is, obviously the food is the large part of your organization, but the funding, how much does it actually cost to run Fair Share, and where does most of that money come from?
Great points. Thanks, Clive. Really appreciate that. So the first one is we work with our members. So our members are the projects and groups that are out there, and it's their responsibility to make sure that the people that go and get the food from them, that they kind of go through all of their checks and so on and so forth. So kind of eligibility wise, that would be something that we entrust our members to do. If there are any issues, and of course, kind of exactly like you said, these issues happen, they would get in touch with us, and I would just pop out there and have a chat with whoever's there, make sure that they're doing everything that is kind of fair and ethical with the food. We do kind of have an agreement that once the food is there, it's the members, it's the individual project's responsibility to do that. But like I say, we have stepped in the past, we have had visits just to make sure that that eligibility process is fair and ethical and moral, and that everybody gets their fair share of the food as and when it's needed. So that would be the first one. And then the second one would be, we get funding from lots of different places. We have a fundraiser. He is phenomenal. He kind of pulls in funding and grants from us from various different ways, but we're mostly funded by the Welsh Government.
Can I ask, it may be my fault, but I haven't heard much about the fundraising efforts for Fair Share. Do you think that more information about that ought to be out there so that more people or know that Fair Share perhaps is a worthy charity to donate for.
Clive, I could not agree more. Our fundraiser, he's not been in post for that long. And it is one thing that he sort of did a little presentation to us recently. It's one thing that's right at the top of his list, is to kind of get comms out there a little bit more for people to understand who Fair Share are, what is it that we do, and kind of how we can grow so we get more food, so we can help more of our members. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it was on his little list the other week. It was lovely.
One last question. I'm sorry, Angela, and I promise this is my last question.
That's okay.
I noticed from the diagram of your distribution points, I only noticed 2 in Wales. I'm probably wrong, but Cardiff, and it looked to me like Chester, and there was a great big gap in the centre. Now, I'm sure people are not short of food, as the example I mentioned, in the slap bang in the centre of Wales. I realise communication is a big difficulty. That's true for a lot in Wales. But do you have a more efficient distribution network in the central regions of Wales? And what are the extra costs involved?
Excellent questions. So Fair Share Cymru at the moment takes responsibility for most of South Wales, North Wales, Fair Share Merseyside, and we work incredibly closely with Fair Share Mersey. They take on the management of any of our kind of members up in North Wales. And what we're doing over the next 3 years, our plan is to meet in the middle. So we're slowly working our way up. As I'm sure you understand, sort of logistically, financially, kind of these things do take a little bit of time. We've just started to begin the 3-year plan to kind of go up to meet in the middle. And it would be things like demand and support. So we need to, our first step is to go out there, to put the feelers out, to see what demand there is, what need there is, what is already there, because obviously we don't want to duplicate work or step on anyone's toes. But we are absolutely aware that food poverty it's a Wales-wide thing. So that's sort of part of our plan to do that. And I would be really excited in sort of 18 months or so to come back and to be able to tell you kind of the successes that we've had and how we've started kind of reaching out to more people in Wales.
Thank you, Angela.
That's great. Thank you, Clive.
Thanks, Clive.
So we have a few more questions for you, Laura, in the chat. So Catherine Evans is asking, do you reach the Conway area?
So at the moment, as I say, we're South Wales and North Wales are Mersey. I believe we do have some in Conway. I would have to double check on that though, Catherine. So yeah, if you want to pop your emails in the chat, I can take all of that information and yeah, make sure that I can get back to you with a definite answer.
That's great, thank you. And someone else is asking, what provisions do you have in Gwynedd?
So at the moment, there is nothing in Gwynedd. But again, I'm meeting with 3 or 4 over the next 3 or 4 weeks to kind of expand into all the different areas.
Okay. And then someone else has agreed with Clive's point, and they would like to raise the problem of volunteers taking advantage to fill their own pantries and not hold regular sessions. So
that is a problem. Yeah, and it's something that we are aware that happens, and it's something that when it gets raised to us, we can go out and visit. If there is a specific that you know of, or there's a specific circumstance or incident, please let me know. It's something that we take very, very seriously, and I will go out and visit the places that need to be visited. But yeah, again, if you could kind of drop me an email in that, I'll put my email address in the chat for people. There we are. There's my email address in the chat. For anything like that, please let me know. And it is really difficult because who kind of sets those eligibility levels? Who says what kind of can and can't be done? But it has to be looked at, and it has to be something that we take quite seriously as well.
Oh, that's great, Laura. And then finally, Anne McGarry asks, what does it cost a local group to join Food Share?
So for a local group, it depends. We have lots of different membership levels. They're in bands. We have term time and non-term time because we support a lot of schools. And it would be, top of my head, for a band 2, which is 50 kilograms to 100 kilograms of food a week, that's £192 a month. That doesn't include direct delivery, but that does include delivery to a local collection point. So in order to kind of save the environment, we pick local collection points. Our van goes to those points and our members pick the food up and then kind of take it on afterwards. But anything like that, if anybody is interested in joining or becoming a member of FareShare or being able to support us through fundraising, please get in touch. I would absolutely love to hear from you. I love a chat. So even if it ends up just being a nice virtual cup of tea, I'm all for that.
That's great, Laura. So if there's no more questions for Laura, we'll move on. So once again, thank you very much, Laura, for joining us today
you.
and for that really informative presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, much appreciated.
You're welcome. So next of all, we're moving on to Vicky Bolton from Coed Poeth Community Council, and she will be talking to us about the food pantry that they run and how they've connected with their local superstores too. Thanks, Vicky.
Okay, so we started a food cupboard a short while ago. We have a member of staff who is a community agent, and in Wrexham we have community agents which are specifically, their remit is to support over 55-year-olds to come out of loneliness and isolation. And part of that role, obviously, we realise is to do with people levels of poverty and the fact that they, cost of living and things like that. So just getting out and about can affect their cost of living. So we set up a food cupboard and we contacted quite a lot of our local stores, and we have very locally, literally a few 100 yards away, we have a Spar and we have an Asda. Like a garage, an Asda garage, which has got a small store, and both of them have been absolutely amazing in supporting us. They've donated, they sort of actually did it in a monetary fashion, so that what they did was they gave us, I think it was £200 to get us up and running, and we were allowed to go in and choose the items that we wanted to go in there. So it wasn't just a case of sort of unwanted food and things like that. So it was really great because it allowed us to set up as we wanted to do. Our cupboard at the moment, we only open it at certain times. We open it two sessions, one in the morning, one in an afternoon, to try and help people out. And it is very basic. We don't have fresh food in there. It is literally sort of pantry items. But what we've also started to get into there is things like sanitary products and toiletries and things like that to support people as well. And we've had quite a lot of interest in it. And one of the things we also did was to put together kettle packs, so that if people wanted to just grab one, we recognise that it's often people who are working, who are suffering and who are struggling. And if they are on their way home from work and they suddenly realise they've got nothing to feed the kids for the evening, we said that we would do kettle packs that they can literally just walk through the door, grab them, and off they go. And they've been really popular as well. Funding wise as well, our council, although we support it with the space and with the staffing, we're not in a situation yet to be able to support it with financial funding. But what we've also had there is members of the public, and we've actually had a couple of other local groups who have supported us through them doing fundraising, and again, financial donations to help us. So we've managed to keep it quite well stocked, and we've managed to keep kettle packs going out through the door, and it's been quite successful. But then as it's gone on, we've sort of realised that it's we have to be careful. One of the criteria of the community agent role is to make sure that we are enabling people. And so what we discovered was we've got quite a few people who were coming through on a very regular basis, and we were it was almost becoming more of a food bank. And we're very aware that food banks don't just provide food, they provide other support services as well. And so we actually had a conversation with somebody from our local FareShare food bank a few weeks ago who said that, they wanted to chat with us because they didn't want us to sort of prevent people from accessing those other services because we were just giving out food. So it's sort of been a project, an ongoing project. It keeps developing. The idea had been for it to be more of a food share, where we are sharing waste food or excess food. But because of the people who are accessing it, we're having to rethink how we're actually carrying it out. And it's quite hard work, really, to work out how we want to run it and who we're reaching. Other issues we've had are people who want to donate, and they think that if they bring things out of their own cupboards, that people should be grateful to have them. And so we get things that have been opened, and we get food donations that are out of date and things like that. And so we have to be careful what we ask for, what support we ask for. But at the same time, it's drifting away from the food cupboard and anybody being able to access it to more of a food bank facility. And again, we're trying to avoid that a little bit. It just staffing wise, it's quite a lot of effort for us to keep it topped up, to keep making sure we get food into it on a regular basis. But then also it's what we're also finding just recently, if we have got a lot of people who are offering to do fundraisers but not having spoken to us first. So we're becoming a little bit conscious of sort of using our service, if you like, for people to fundraise without actually going via us as well. So it's another issue that we're having to tackle at the moment, is to how do you very politely ask people to not raise funds without speaking to you first, because again, you know, we need to be transparent. We need to make sure that we're not taking advantage of anybody, and neither is anybody else. So there's lots of different aspects we're finding to just having a small food cupboard. We'd like to expand it, but we've quite quickly realised that there's a lot more to it than we thought there might be. We thought if we just had a cupboard and said anybody can access it. We've tried to put limits on it. So we've said to people that if we have high value products, so for instance, we've been donated things like big cartons of like hot chocolate, drinking chocolate, that are quite value, you know, they have quite high value. Certainly things, we had quite a lot of baby milk donated, and again, they're very high value. So we tend to say that they can have one high value item, 5 items in total, and one high value. And then also to not take more than 2 of the same item, because we had certain people who were just coming in and emptying all the baked beans out. So we just didn't think it was fair. But again, we're not judging people. We're not in a situation that we can assess people as to what their needs are to that extent. So it's taking quite a lot of effort to think about how we want to process everything. And certainly, you know, listening to Laura and knowing the contacts I've had myself with fair share in the past and food banks, we're really conscious of not doing it wrong. So we're trying to do it, but at the same time not do it wrong. So any advice, any questions, advice, information, I'm happy to take as well. But that's it really. It is literally a cupboard that we have, that we keep all the stock in. We top it up regularly. And the rules are that anybody can access it. We don't judge them. You know, the staff are all you know, we're all trained on the fact that we don't ask any questions. We don't really ask what people are taking. It's down to them. We don't want to put any extra pressure on people. We do have a few regulars who come on a weekly basis. But at the moment we're limiting it to up to 5 items, and we put in 5 items into a kettle pack as well. So that's it really. That is how we're running it at the moment. So is that providing enough information? I'm not sure. Is that okay?
That's great, Vicky. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So can I I can see we've got a question here, raised hand, but we did have a question popped in the question box too. Someone says they agree that there needs to be some analysis of who is accessing the help, and does any agency have a toolkit for this? So are you aware of anything like that, Vicky? I'm
not. I'm just aware of the rules that you know, that fair share have had in the past. And again, you know, if Laura can make them clarify them, and that's sort of how we're running it, is basically that we try not to let people become reliant upon us, and we try to provide support, other support if we can, so we can signpost people when they hear. If they come just once, you know, obviously, as I say, it's kind of no questions. It was originally designed about just sharing food, excess food. But if they're coming on a regular basis, which we do have a few people doing, then we're just trying to follow similar rules along the lines of that they can't come every day, that if they need other support, then we'll try and offer that as well. But other than that, it's difficult to manage, to be honest.
Yeah. If anyone has had any experience in that area and obviously had success in being able to manage that, that would be great if you'd be able to share that with us. So either pop something in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and tell us a little bit about that, that would be great. So Kim, you've got a question there, Kim.
What's in a kettleback?
Okay, so we've got a few people who come to us who are they're in social housing. We're not entirely sure whether they have cooking facilities or whether they just can't cook. So what we try to put in there are items that are as healthy as possible, but that they can literally make with boiled water. So it might be sort of some noodles, something like tuna, something that can literally or be microwaved, or items like that. So it might be a cup of soup, things like that, which we know are not ideal. But if it's a difference in somebody not going hungry, then we, you know, that's again why we try and limit the number of times people access that facility. So yeah, it's, as I say, we don't do fresh food, so it is literally just anything that can be sort of microwaved or made with a kettle.
So Sue has a comment that she's popped in the chat. So she says, in Aberporth, we have a successful community fridge run by the Village Hall charity, and it was set up with grant funding and has been running with volunteers for the past 3 years. It's all about stopping food waste and has become a lively community hub. There is a lack of fresh food, so the charity is joining FareShare, and she says we will be asking the community council to help fund the £60 a month fee along with other user donations. So that's great news, Sue. Thanks for sharing that. And then Gordon also says we operate a referral system in Bank Bud Amlick in line with the Trussell Trust system. So that's great. Great to hear we've got other initiatives up and running as well. Thanks for that, Gordon. So Vicky, thanks for sharing that presentation. It sounds like it's working really well there. There's still obviously, you know, big strides to be made there in terms of how it's regulated and how it's monitored, etc. But great that assistance is there for that community. So it'd be interesting to see how that progresses as you move forward. Some really useful advice in there for others who are considering obviously opening a food pantry. And you know, obviously thinking about ways in which that can run to benefit those who are mostly in need of that, rather than those who are accessing it when they perhaps shouldn't. So we have another guest speaker today. We've been joined by Martin Hanks, who's the clerk for Bangor Town Council. And Martin's here today to talk about their hot food initiative, which they run in conjunction with the student union at the university. So welcome, Martin, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Angela, and good morning to everybody. Excuse me. This is an interesting project, and to be truthful, I feel somewhat of a fraud because it's not something that we run directly ourselves. This is more of an example of the council supporting and harnessing local goodwill. And on this occasion, of course, from the Students' Union, but it has attracted some attention. And I think it's got something, it's obviously beneficial to the community, but it's got something of a feel-good factor to it as well. So I'm happy to talk about that and tell you where we're up to. I have prepared a few very basic photographs, more so that it takes the attention away from my face, because as I'm sure you can understand, it would be far better to look at that. So if I can share my screen. I don't know if you can see that now. No. Okay.
Can't see you at the moment, Martin.
Okay, bear with me. Okay. Is that working?
Yeah, we can see you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, right, now the next thing is, will it change page? That's the next challenge, but we'll take one at a time. Yeah, this is, as I said, a project. Bangor City Council, of course, like most town and community councils, have been aware of the difficulties with food poverty and the economic crisis for some time, and have for a number of years funded through grants and stuff some local food banks. But it's been very clear for a while that more and more people are struggling, and we have consciously been considering what else we can do. And I was at a meeting of something called the Bangor University Community Board the spring of last year. It's about 20 people who meet regularly and discuss the university's impact on the locality. At that meeting, also attended by the Students' Union, one of the Students' Union representatives mentioned that one of the students had, before coming to Bangor, been involved in volunteering at a hot food project and wanted to do something similar here, but couldn't find a suitable location. So I offered to meet with the person concerned and see if, as a council, we could help. And I met with Ben Chandler, Josie Ball and Sam Dickens. Ben was actually captain of the local university rugby team, which becomes significant later in the story. And we discussed a few options and we looked at what we could do to help. So over the next couple of months, several meetings took place, and the one facility that we had that we didn't think was particularly suitable was our council chamber. Like most of you, I'm sure we've all got council chambers that we use for meetings. I've got a couple of photographs up there. But Ben looked at this and thought, that's absolutely perfect. And with a little bit of rearranging, as you can see, laid the tables out in long rows, as in canteen style, and used the mayor and the deputy mayor's table as a serving dish, and thought, yeah, I can do something with this. So in September of last year, following receiving a grant also from the City Council to buy some extra equipment, the hot food programme opened. It runs from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. every Saturday afternoon, and there are no prerequisites. Anybody is allowed in, students, local people who, one or two people even travel in from the locality. The only thing that's asked is they bring an appetite and they are served with a hot meal. The venue we've got has got a kitchen in the back, which helps. And so initially, the students used to prepare the food in the university and then catch the university kitchen and then transport it. But to make their life easier, they took it on board to get the food hygiene rating of the kitchen upgraded. They did all the work, and it got a 5-star rating. So now food is prepared in the kitchen behind the chamber. The other advantage of the location is that we are right next to the bus stop, so communication is very, very easy for people to come in and out. And this, from September last year, between 50 and 70 hot meals have been served every Saturday afternoon from this location. And people, as I say, come in. People, homeless people, people with difficulties, alcoholism and stuff, students struggling. Just anybody walks in during that time and gets fed fairly basic, but a hot meal. We let them use the hall for nothing, and we cover some of the organisational stuff. But ultimately, this apart from the initial grant, this project is funded by the Students' Union. They conduct their own fundraising. They liaise with local supermarkets and get food in the manner of some other charity organisations do as well. I mean, last year's mayor summed things up really well when she said, "It's been incredible to work alongside student volunteers who recognise the challenges many people are facing in our community, particularly due to the cost of living crisis, they genuinely want to support. Ben approached us with an idea and we provided operational support to bring this to life, being able to encourage collaboration between the Students' Union and Bangor University, who share the same values and mission, is the icing on the cake. And that's really it. I mean, that's the project. It's now approaching 2,000 meals that this project has served in that time. And it's just growing from strength to strength. These are the key characters involved. Ben on the left, you can see when I say he's a rugby player, and that is significant. Josie's in charge of volunteers for the Students' Union, and the gentleman in the right-hand corner, Sam Dickens. Sam's quite an interesting character because, I don't know if you're aware, representatives of the Students' Union do 2 years as full-time employees and then go out and find jobs. Sam was so impressed with his interaction with us as a council and what we're doing and working with us that he actually has gone out and become a deputy clerk down in his hometown in Devon. So that's quite nice. Ben, as I say, captain of the rugby team, and a lot of the volunteers initially were from the Student Union's rugby team. But there was a problem this time last year. Saturday, when the project is run, was 2 days before Christmas on last year's calendar, and many of the student volunteers had gone home. Oh, sorry, were planning to go home. Ben was absolutely adamant that he needed the project to run on the Saturday before Christmas, wasn't going to let people go hungry, and so used his rugby contacts to see if he could find anybody to help. And the local rugby team, I don't know if anybody knows Bangor, but just across the Menai Straits is a village called Menai Bridge. And the Menai Bridge rugby team, a local rugby team, put their hands up and said, yeah, come on, we'll help you out. And on the Saturday before Christmas, the local rugby team came in and ran the service with Ben to ensure that nobody went without a hot meal on that Saturday. The project has made some local press, and as a result of that, the key people, as you can see here, won the High Sheriff of Gwyned's Award for local volunteering, which was a sort of nice accolade. As I say, primarily for them. I mean, the City Council, we've helped, we've supported, and we've done everything we can. But ultimately, this is a local voluntary group project. And so really, that's about it. I mean, the local paper delivered the report that the commitment and dedication of the students involved has been inspirational and a credit to the union, the university, and to young people generally. And this project has proved hugely beneficial to the people of the city of Bangor. And at the time of writing, had delivered 500 hot meals in the first 4 months. As I said, now it's close to 2,000. And the other unexpected sideline of this, and I have regular meetings with the local police inspector covering this area. Antisocial behaviour in the centre of Bangor on Saturday afternoons has reduced noticeably, and nobody knew why for a long time. And they've now made the link that, of course, we have 1 or 2 centres here for people with alcohol problems and stuff. And the people who were causing the issues on the high street of Bangor on a Saturday afternoon are now going to the hot food project and having a hot meal, and therefore they are not causing any issues on the high streets. So everybody seems to have won on this. As I said, it's a very specific and very local story, one we're very proud of. And as I say, from a council point of view, I think it's a good example of how we have supported, helped and harnessed a voluntary group. Not all of you have got universities and a whole batch of students willing to help, but I'm sure you all got voluntary groups. And this isn't the only voluntary group the Bangor City Council supports and helps. We have other voluntary groups. There's one establishing a community orchard as we speak. There's another one running a herb garden. And we even have a pier in Bangor that's run by voluntary groups. So by working with these groups, helping them, yes, giving them resources like money and grants where we can, but more than that, we offer them administrative support. We offer them help in getting grant funding and the like. And it can allow small community councils, because even here in Bangor, we're still a town community council, to maximise the effect that we have on our local community. I'm hoping that you will see this as one of those successes, and thank you very much for your time.
Oh, that's brilliant, Martin. Such an inspirational story. And I'm sure one, as you say, can relate to every single town and community council out there who don't always necessarily have the facilities themselves to run such a hub themselves. But like you say, it's all very much about seeing who's in your community, who you can partner with, who you can collaborate with, who can help raise those funds and make those initiatives come to life. So really inspirational story. And I do love the little bit about it taking all the troublemakers off the street on a Saturday morning because they're at your food hub. I think that's amazing. So just a question I'd like to ask of you, Martin, is how what sort of hoops you have to go through in terms of sort of facilitating these kinds of projects. How easy is that for someone to consider should they want to do something similar in for their community?
I have to say, I didn't find it too onerous at all. Obviously, I've got two other people working here. There's three of us in the office, and a lot of the background work was done by my deputy, who's not in today, unfortunately. So I can't give you the detailed answer that I would have liked. But there didn't seem to be too many hoops to go through. It was much more about obviously complying with the food hygiene and the stuff that anybody who runs a kitchen will know about and can help with. And advertising, opening the doors and just saying, come and use it. Come and give it a try. So I'm not aware of any major hoops at all. It's about having the people that are willing to put in the time and the effort, and then the common sense things like having enough money to get the thing off the ground. And it didn't take a lot of money. As I said, this council put in £1,500, which in our budget is not a vast sum of money, and actually lots of that went to buy additional equipment that's going into our kitchen anyway. So in actual fact, it wasn't. It's probably a bit disingenuous to put that down to the project in itself. No, it wasn't. It wasn't challenging at all. It's something that I think anybody who's got a commitment to do it can do it fairly straightforwardly.
Yeah, great stuff. And so it's self-sufficient now. So your initial intervention obviously helped that get off the ground, but it's self-sufficient now. And as you say, it's absolutely thriving. So in terms of regulations around food, how do you overcome that, Martin, in terms of being able to serve this hot food?
It's like you would do in any food preparation place. I mean, the local unitary authority will inspect. They will give you a rating on your food hygiene, and anybody who serves food anywhere will know about these things, and they give you certificates. So that's the most important thing. The people serving, I think, do a course as well. Well, they don't think they do a course as well. But again, none of this is particularly onerous. When you say self-sufficient, actually, it's interesting because while we allow or give the room for free, and we cover things like the electric and the sources, we've gone back to this group a couple of times and said, look, it's been now over a year since we gave you the initial grants. Do you need more money? I'd actually say, no, we're fine. We're okay. We've got our own fundraising methods. If we need anything, we'll come back to you. And here we are, over a year gone by, and they haven't done that. So they are pretty much, as you say, self-sufficient, which I think is fantastic for them. But yeah, the food hygiene side, I say, it's just like running any other food outlets. So nothing too onerous.
Fantastic. Thanks for clarifying that for us, Martin. So we have a hand raised by Rebecca. So Rebecca, did you want to come in and ask your question?
Yes, I just wanted to carry on really from those questions around sort of food hygiene and permissions that you need. And I just extended that a little bit further. Do those people who are actually cooking the food, need to have a qualification, a chef or whatever? Or is it just the food hygiene side of things?
I think it's the food hygiene check. I think somebody there needs to have the qualification. As I said, this is run by the Students' Union, not by me personally. So I would check my answer, is what I'm trying to say. But my understanding is that as long as somebody overseeing has got the qualification, then and the volunteers have got food hygiene, then they're covered. That's my understanding.
Lovely, thank you.
Thanks for that, Martin. So Gordon Warren has left a comment. He says, thank you, Martin. A really good story. And volunteering has its own reward. It definitely has in this instance, hasn't it? So again, you know, amazing story. Great that such a small pot of money has been able to generate such a big project, which is used now by so many people in your community who obviously need that facility. So that's great. Thank you very much for that, Martin. Great presentation. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure there's lots of ideas there for our councils to think about, and maybe put something similar, start to think about putting something similar in place for their communities. So just really to come back to everyone in attendance here today. So is anyone currently thinking about running any food initiatives in their area? If so, what sort of initiatives are they? Are they like food cupboards that Vicky has? Is it like the hot food project, which you know Martin has in his council? I mean, has anyone got any thoughts, or do they have any projects that are up and running at the moment that they would maybe want to share with us? Any thoughts there? I mean, it's that time of year. So, Becca, is that your hand raised again?
Yeah, no, it is. Yes, no, I mean, I'm a councillor in South Wales for St Athan Community Council, and no, we're very much thinking that we want to do something, but we're at very, very early stages, and we're not at all sure what. We do know that there's a local food bank operating in our village. I've just slightly forgotten their name. But yeah, I think we're thinking, and that's why I was asking about the chef, thinking down the line of a hot food club or a lunch club or a but I'm just so struck by this whole idea of involving the whole community. So, you know, you're sort of the volunteers, you know, talking about the sort of the loneliness and well-being. It's really brilliant for them. And then you've got the people coming in who really need that hot food, so that's really good for them. And actually, it's a hub, isn't it? People get together. It just seems like a win-win. So we're just sort of in that area. We do have a local community centre which has a smallish kitchen that we could probably use. And I'm wondering also whether we could run, you know, whether we can have the people who might want to learn how to cook nutritious foods, or even if we just start simple with like soup, they could come in and they could learn how to cook soup, and then that soup is then given to those people who need the hot food kind of thing. So it's sort of like a whole circle of brilliance. But yeah, very early stages for that one.
Just on that point, Rebecca, speaking to some councils, there are organisations out there who give funding for such projects. For example, I've heard of a project called Multiply, where they obviously are working on improving people's numeracy skills, etc. But you can combine that with cooking in some instances. So they've given a particular council a small grant where they are able to run these healthy kitchen clubs, and obviously people attending are using that those numeracy skills. So it's fulfilling the funding criteria for that money. But as part of that, then they're learning how to cook low budget nutritional meals for their families. And as you say, then because they've cooked those meals, they are able to take them away for their family as well. So there might be another funding stream possibly you could look at in your area.
Think of that. That's a really good one, isn't it? To bring in, you know, numeracy help as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots to
So
think
yeah,
about.
exactly. So, you know, it's not always just looking at other food organisations in your area or people who can supply that food. It's teaming up with organisations who can maybe, you know, foot some of that bill for you as well to get that project alive and up and running as well. So that particular project is called Multiply. So I know it doesn't run throughout Wales, but it might be worth having a look to see if there's something similar in your area,
Lovely.
Rebecca, or obviously
Thank you.
anyone else who might be thinking about something similar.
And
So
can I
thank
just
you.
come in on that as well, just in response to Rebecca. Rebecca, we've got lots of examples of town and community councils that are running food initiatives. And so that if you want us to connect you with anyone for the opportunity to share learning and experience, we're quite happy to do that. So bear that in mind. And a lot of those projects are part of our base group discussion group, which is just about enabling that discussion to happen between councils, so you can benefit benefit from one another's experience. So if you want any further examples, or if anyone on the call does, then just get in touch with us at One Voice Wales.
Definitely will do.
Happy to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's it. I think we're at that stage where we just need to explore lots of different projects, go and look at them, even visit them, and then, you know, formulate a plan for our own community. But yeah, no, that would be very helpful.
That's great. And just to add really to Emma's comments there, if anyone wants to pop in the chat, anything in particular that they do want from the project in terms of any help or advice or any links that we can offer, then please do drop them in the chat, and you know, we'll endeavour to answer those or get in touch with any information we have that may benefit you. So we have a couple of questions. So Catherine Evans again says, Town and Kimmel Bay Town Council support the local church food bank with funding and support with grant applications. A lot of food for thought discussed here today that has sparked some ideas of further support we could offer. I mean, that's great to hear, Catherine. I know we had a conversation about the work you do there with the church, so it's great to know that there's obviously more that you can look into now doing to increase that interaction. Great stuff. And then someone else has popped in there. Cook 24 is a fabulous project in Clonelly, very inspirational. Not heard of that one, so definitely that's worth looking up. That's Cook 24, and again, it may be something that's running in your area that you can access, so thanks for that. Yes, definitely. And then Gordon Warren's asked for the One Voice Wales contact details, so we'll again pop those in the chat for you. Thanks. Okay, so we'll be following up with a toolkit and questions from the session. We are at the moment preparing a toolkit around the whole of the food sort of hubs and ways in which you can support your communities who are maybe struggling at the moment with accessing food. So look out for the toolkit. That should be available hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks time. As soon as that's available, we'll of course be publishing that on Facebook, on our webpage as well, and we'll be dropping that in an email newsletter for you also. And if there are any questions that we haven't followed up today, then of course we'll come back to you with answers to those too. So Vanessa's just dropped the Facebook link in the chat there for you. So again, as Emma said, it's a great forum. If you have got questions or you have got thoughts about setting up a project, you're not quite sure where to go, there's, you know, undoubtedly going to be someone in there who can offer some help and some guidance. So it's always a good forum for you to pop in your concerns, your comments, or even share any good news stories that you have as well, just so that others can link in with that. So yeah, if you haven't already joined, please do join the Facebook forum as well. And then there's contact details for the cost of living as well. So if anyone wants to email us directly, by all means do. And we've actually got your hand raised there, so let me bring you in. Can you hear me, Anne?
Yes, I can, thanks. We're a very small town, so we're only a population of about 2,300. We've got a food bank. There is a food surplus. The food surplus is, in my opinion, not in a location that is used by a wide variety of the town. But I think the food bank worry because we're pretty sure that we're not reaching all the people who need help. We're pretty sure that the sort of frequent reticence that people have is greater in a really small town, that people don't want to be seen to be, you know, needy and all that sort of thing. And we have tried various ways to try and get help out to people. So the food bank provides sort of snacks for the school, for fruit, money for fruit for the primary school, so that if kids are hungry, come in hungry in the morning, they can have something, and cereal bars for the secondary school for the same reason, and pays for snacks in the youth club and things like that. But I mean, I think this is an impossible question, really. If anybody's got any really bright ideas about how you actually reach. Oh, the other thing that the food bank does is that most of the bags now go out through the local advice centre. So that has a double benefit, that if somebody needs a food bag, then they can be asked to go to the advice centre, who can advise them on all sorts of financial issues. And the other way around, if they go to the advice centre, they can have a food bag, and this isn't necessarily a stigma attached to them getting it. But it's a really difficult problem, this kind of reaching some of the people who really need the help. I don't know if anybody's got any wonderful insights or ideas.
And do you think,
Does anyone?
sorry,
Go on.
just to go, do you think, so the problem is that people don't want to access those services because of the stigma? Is that?
Yes, yeah, that's what we're pretty sure of.
So I wonder if there's something, I don't know. I mean, is there something in the service not then necessarily being about the food, and that becomes just incidental, so that there is a food offer, but what you're perhaps talking to the community about is something else in a session, and there's food supplies. I don't know, is that potentially a different way to come at it?
Well, the food bank doesn't do sessions like that, but delivering a lot of them through the advice centre does perform that function. And we haven't really got another mechanism like
more
that.
Relevant with a hot food offer, isn't it?
Well, the food bank, I mean, we are a very small town, and so the capacity to do that sort of thing is difficult.
I don't know whether anyone else can come in on that, but certainly, from my perspective, it would be useful to understand the challenges and barriers that you're experiencing. If you would be happy to take the time to put that on an email to us, and then we might be able to explore that with other councils who perhaps overcome something like that and come back to you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Anne. John, did you want to come in? You've got your hand raised.
Well, it's very interesting. We're only, Vale of Graney is only a small community council, but we have talked of ideas of what we could do with some sort of food bank. And it's good to listen to different ideas of each community council. But our main object is, we talked about it, but haven't got on with it. And it's good to have some ideas from different, how they approach it, different ways, like. So that's very interesting as far as I can see. But we got to get on and do something, and we're only a small community, like, but until you start to look how many is in need, like, so. And thank you very much for all the speakers and put in some ideas as we can perhaps take on board and how we can get about it. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome, John, and it's great to hear that today's session has been valuable for you. I mean, that's the whole point of these sessions, to generate ideas, to hear, the other examples from other councils who are running initiatives and how they've got to that position and that point. So thanks for that, John. So we also have a hand raised from Gordon. So Gordon, did you want to come in?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Oh,
Hi,
very
Gordon.
good. Yeah, just a couple of things, really. I've been running the food bank in Amlwch for about 5 years now. closely in association with Amlwch Town Council. We actually use rooms in the council building, and I'm a councillor as well, as it happens. So we are working with Amlwch Town Council. We're a fairly small affair. We just do the north of the island. We can't really take advantage of fair share because of the distance and where we are. And on one occasion when we did try to do it in association with Anglesey Food Bank, who do the rest of the island, who we work quite closely with, we found that we were getting stuff in the sort of quantities that we couldn't deal with within used by dates and sell by dates. So it's not really practical for us. One point I wanted to make, I don't like to hear rumours about people abusing the food bank and not getting what they deserve, because I'm convinced there are far more people who need the food bank and don't come to us than there are the few who might abuse it. And I think, you know, those sorts of stories going around, often unsubstantiated, will have a negative effect on donations of food and money to the food bank. And we do very well generally to get donations in. You know, we're doing okay financially, and continue to do so. So I don't like to hear negative stuff about food banks, which is often unsubstantiated, and it can damage our reputation. So I always say, who told you that? You know, if people come to me with real evidence of abuse of the system, then I'll deal with it. But you can't work with a rumor, can you? Sorry,
No, Gordon.
it's something I feel quite strongly about.
I think it's a good point, Gordon. Sorry to jump in, because I think, you know, what we don't want to breed is further stigmatism about it, do we? You know, by making it harder for people to access, and there is a danger that might happen. You know, so I think it's an excellent point, well made. So yeah, thanks.
And McGarry has agreed with your comment there, Gordon. She said, well done, Gordon. So yeah, very much so a case of it's encouraging people to come forward, as opposed to thinking that, yeah, that's, people are going to think negatively of us if we use that facility.
Yeah.
So
and I think, I've also, sorry to interrupt. I've also reached out into the community in other ways. You know, I've given talks to the local WI, for instance, and I intend to talk to the schools shortly. So, you know, making them aware of what we do and what facilities we have. I think it just spreads the message that we're there and what we do. And I think that's a positive thing as well, to encourage people.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, just in terms of any ideas anyone else has in regards to taking away the stigma from people accessing, food banks, food pantries, are there any more thoughts around that at all? Because this is something that we hear all the time, that we know there's people in desperate need for that facility, but they're struggling to reach them. So has anyone else got any thoughts around that? How they could access those people who maybe feel uncomfortable walking into a food pantry, or any sort of food supplier? Anyone got any thoughts around that at all? Vanessa, I'll just bring you in now, 1 second. Can you hear me, Vanessa?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, can.
Yeah, I think it's about how we promote the project, really, about how you sell the project, the food project, that the availability of the food, rather than, maybe call it something different to a food bank, that that you remove the sort of stigma from it, and you can promote it in a positive way, and that it's accessible to everybody, rather than having people having to put their hand up and say, I'm struggling and I need a referral to receive a parcel, a package, that it's more accessible. And I think it's probably about how we promote the project. in, you know, and give it that positive reinforcement that it's supporting the community. Especially, I think, if it's surplus food, because you can promote it in a way that it's saving waste as well, that it's not just about being for people who are struggling, that it's there for anybody who can make use of it.
Okay. Does your council, Vanessa, run sort of any food initiatives at all? And if so, how have you made that successful? And have you been able to access those hard to reach people who maybe don't like to come forward?
I think, I don't know if Sue is still on. Sue Lewis is one of our councillors that runs the community fridge project in Aberporth. They've had that for the last 3 years, and they promote it in a positive way. It's open to anybody to attend, and it is about using that surplus food rather than it being attached to people who are struggling. And anybody can go there anytime when it's open and take food away, whatever they've got there. And it's about using up that food that isn't going to be sold at the supermarkets and would otherwise go to landfill.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that, Vanessa. Thanks for sharing that with us. Sue Lewis again agrees with the last few comments that have been made. Yes, stigma-free is essential. Definitely, you know, this is something that does surround this whole food issue, really. So again, if anyone has any thoughts about how we can maybe overcome that, we've heard some great examples today. But if anyone has got anything to do, please drop something in the Q&A, and I can read those out to the group. Or if you want to contact us directly. So if there's no more questions. Okay. Oh, Clive, you've got your hand raised. Okay. Clive, do you want to unmute yourself?
Unmute. There we go. Yeah, thanks very much. I take a slight exception for the comment made just a moment ago. I think it's from Barry. My raising the point with Laura about, and I quoted a case of someone who is taking advantage of the system. That comment was not meant to be damaging or critical of the system which we've been discussing. I wonder if Barry is accusing me of lying, because I wasn't, and I was trying to make a useful contribution. It's no good us sticking our heads in the sand, even if only one person in the whole of the United Kingdom were to take advantage of the system. To me, that's one person too much. It is not critical of the system. It is not critical of the aims or the efforts of everyone who's been doing these very effective projects like Fair Share. And I really was very pleased the way Laura, listening to my question, answered it, and the way she did it. She didn't seem at all upset by it. So I can only suggest that rather than getting upset by people like myself who proffered a comment in a way which is meant to be highly constructive, not destructive, perhaps that gentleman ought to look to himself a little more as well.
Thanks, Clive. I think I just want to reinforce that I think this is a forum of constructive comments and positivity, and I don't believe that your comments were taken in that way. So yeah. Anyway, I think we'll move on from that now.
Again, thank you so much for everyone who's contributed today, for all the guest speakers, and of course everyone who's attended today. I really do hope it's been very useful for everyone who's attended today. So supporting residents facing food poverty, is vital. I think we've all heard that today, and particularly during this time of year, Christmas and the colder months. People have got choices between food and fuel, and it makes that pressure even more unbearable. So Councils, by backing community food initiatives, they can play a key role, as we've heard today, in improving food security, which in turn will help promoting health, well-being, and of course strengthening that social cohesion as well. You know, we've seen some excellent examples today, practical examples of initiatives that are already making a massive difference to those communities. And I hope, you know, today's session's been useful and you leave with some ideas that, you know, you can take away and start thinking about some of the other organisations, some of the other groups, some of the volunteers that you may be able to partner with in your communities to get some similar initiatives up off the ground. You know, sometimes, you know, it is just that small, you know, start that can snowball, as we've seen in Martin's instance, that can snowball into something quite substantial. So, you know, it's just small steps. So, you know, this ongoing collaboration, I think is going to be key to moving this on. So, you know, thank you all for your participation today. We will be following up, as I mentioned earlier, with the toolkit, which talks about food initiatives that are currently running, some links that may help you get your project off the ground, and some ideas as well. There will also be a recording of today's webinar, which we'll be sharing in due course. So if there's anything in here today that you feel you'd like to go back, recap on, then obviously you can do so. And also any resources, any of the slides from today's presentation we'll be sharing as well after today, so that you can, again, use that information to maybe move your own project forward. Okay, so just checking there's no more questions, which there doesn't seem to be. So thank you all again for your participation today. Before you go, there's just a few little things from myself. We have mentioned a couple of times during our session that we have a cost of living Facebook forum. And if you haven't already joined, it's a great collaborative space for community and town councils to share their best practices, to ask questions, and really to get any help and advice on issues that may be affecting your communities around the cost of living crisis. And that link is already is in the chat as well. Vanessa's just popped that up there. So, you know, again, we've got quite a few number of people who've already joined that. Vanessa is every day including information about links as well to other resources that may be of benefit to you. A lot of them are grants that might be available to your area. And again, sharing initiatives that are running well in other councils as well. So again, that's well worth joining if you haven't already. So again, thank you everyone for joining today. Great to see you all, and we hope to see you at our next event. So, diolch. Thank you.